My son's wife spent 11 years convincing him I was poison. By the time she was done, he wouldn't take my calls, wouldn't come to his mother's funeral, wouldn't even let me send his boy a birthday card. Then I sold the welding shop I'd run for 43 years to a Houston outfit for $22 million, paid cash for a ranch house on 12 acres outside Boren, Texas, and started learning what quiet sounded like. 3 weeks into that quiet, on a Tuesday morning, I was out back trying to figure out which end of a fly rod went where, when I heard a car door slam in my driveway, then another, then a third, and a voice I hadn't heard since 2014 hollered, "Daddy, we're here." What I did over the next 9 days is the reason I'm telling you this story. If you've ever had your own blood look you in the eye and decide you were worth less than what you owned, hit that like button. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from and stick with me, because I am not a man who forgets, and I am not a man who forgives easily. And what they walked into thinking they could take, they walked out of with nothing but the clothes on their backs in the court date. My name is Roy Whitaker. I am 67 years old. Most of my life I built things, pipe racks, structural beams, the bones of refineries down on the Gulf Coast. My hands are scarred up from 40 years of slag and stick welding, and they don't shake. That part matters later. I went to the front of the house and pulled the door open, and there they were. My son, Brennan. Though looking at him, I almost didn't recognize him. He'd put on 40 pounds since the last picture I'd seen, and his hair, what was left of it, was thin and damp against his forehead. He was 41 years old, and he looked 55. Next to him stood his wife, Camille. 11 years and she hadn't changed except her clothes had gotten more expensive. Same sharp little chin. Same eyes that took inventory before they said hello. She was wearing a cream-colored coat that did not belong in Texas Hill Country in October, and she had her hand on the shoulder of a boy. The boy was the one who undid me. He was 13, give or take. I'd only ever seen him as a baby. He had Brennan's dark hair and his grandmother's mouth. Lord, his grandmother's exact mouth. And he was so thin you could see the bones in his wrist where it stuck out of the sleeve. He had a bruise on his cheekbone the color of old mustard. He didn't look up at me. He was looking at the porch boards like he was counting them. "Daddy," Camille said, and she stepped forward like she was going to hug me. I moved sideways and her arms went around air. She covered it with a little laugh. "Oh, you, always so prickly. We've come a long way. May we come in? Look at this place. Look at all of this. You did it, Daddy. You really did it." The daddy was new. She used to call me Roy when she talked to me at all. Mostly she talked through Brennan, and Brennan talked at the carpet. I stood in the doorway and I let the silence get long, long enough that Brennan finally lifted his head and looked at me. "Hey, Dad," he said. His voice cracked a little. It's been a while." 11 years, I said. 11 years and 2 months. You missed your mother." He flinched. Camille jumped in fast. "You flinched." Camille jumped in fast. "Daddy, we are so sorry about that. We were going through such a hard time then. You have no idea. And now that we have all this distance behind us, we just want to be a family again. Tate has been begging to meet his grandpa." She squeezed the boy's shoulder. The boy didn't move. "Haven't you, sweetheart?" The boy said nothing. He just kept counting porch boards. I looked past them at the driveway. They had a black SUV that was 2 years old and had a dented rear quarter panel. They had, I counted, 7 suitcases. 7, plus a folded-up scooter, a guitar case, and what looked like a cat carrier. A cat carrier. "Camille," I said, "how long are you planning to stay?" "Oh, Daddy, don't be like that. We'll figure all that out. Look, we're tired. Tate's tired. Can we please come in? It's been such a drive." "From where?" "Reno. Now I want you to understand something. They had moved to Reno, Nevada 9 years ago, and Brennan had not once given me their address. I had it anyway. I'm not a man who lets people disappear with my only grandchild. But he never gave it to me. He never invited me. When I sent that boy a card on his 4th birthday with $200 in it, it came back marked "Return to Sender" in Brennan's handwriting. You drove from Reno, I said, with 7 suitcases and a cat, to my house, without calling first. Camille's smile got tight at the edges. Daddy, we wanted to surprise you. We wanted it to be special. I looked at the boy. Tate. I looked at the bruise. He felt me looking and turned his face away, and that was the moment I made up my mind. Come in, I said. Leave the bags. We sat in my front room. The room is large, most of the house is. I'd bought too much house on purpose. I had a notion when I bought it that I wanted space the way some men want a dog, just to fill the silence Margaret left behind when she died. Margaret. My wife, 41 years of marriage, and Brennan didn't come to her funeral. I want to be clear about that. He didn't come. He sent flowers from a 1-800 number with a card that said, "From the family," in someone else's handwriting. I kept that card. I keep it in my desk drawer. Camille sat down on my leather sofa and crossed her legs and started talking before her purse hit the floor. Daddy, this house is just gorgeous. Just gorgeous. How many bedrooms? 5? 6? Oh my goodness. 5? 6? Oh my goodness. And the kitchen, I saw the kitchen on the way in. That's a $60,000 kitchen, at least. Brennan, isn't it lovely? Brennan grunted. He was sitting on the edge of an armchair like the seat might bite him. Daddy, we have something to talk to you about, and I just want to say first how much we have missed you. Truly. Brennan has cried about this. He has cried. I looked at my son. He was looking at his hands. Have you? I said. He has. He has so much regret. That whole business with the will and your wife's things, that was so blown out of proportion. We never meant. Daddy, can I be honest with you? Can we just be honest with each other? I didn't answer. She took that as a yes. We are in a tight spot, Daddy. I'm not going to pretend. Brennan lost his job. The dealership let him go in August. And Tate, our baby, our beautiful boy, he has been struggling. He needs his family. We need our family. And when we heard you had sold the company, how did you hear that? It was online, Daddy. It was in a trade magazine. We were so proud. So proud. $22 million, the article said. $22 million. For all your hard work. Mama would be so. Don't, I said. Don't say her name. Camille's mouth shut. The boy was still on his feet. Nobody had told him to sit. He stood by the wall with his arms wrapped around himself. I said, Tate, come over here, son. Sit by me. He looked at his mother. She nodded, a tiny quick nod. He came over and sat on the very edge of the cushion next to me. 6 inches of space between us. I could smell him. He smelled like he'd been wearing the same shirt for 3 days. You hungry? I asked him. He nodded once. When'd you eat last? He looked at his mother again. Don't look at her. Look at me. When'd you eat last? He whispered. Yesterday. Now. I want to tell you what I felt in that moment, because I think if you're going to understand the rest of the story, you have to understand what happened to me when my grandson said yesterday. Something happened in my chest that I had not felt since 1981, when a piece of falling pipe broke a man's leg on my crew, and I had to be the one to tell him he was going to lose it. It was a cold thing, a cold, settled thing. Not anger. Anger was coming, but anger wasn't what I felt first. What I felt first was a kind of decision, the way you decide a thing has to end. I stood up. I went into the kitchen. I made that boy a sandwich the size of a brick. Turkey, Swiss, tomato, a pickle, chips on the side, a glass of cold whole milk. I carried it back into the front room and put it on the coffee table in front of him. Eat, I said. He ate. He ate like a dog that has been kicked. Camille was watching him with a tight, embarrassed look, and she opened her mouth and I said, Camille, you make one comment about that boy's manners and I will put you out of this house right now. She shut her mouth. I sat down again. I watched my grandson eat. When he was about halfway through the sandwich and starting to slow down, I said to Camille and Brennan very quietly, "Where did he get the bruise?" "Oh, Daddy," Camille said. "Boys are boys." "He fell off his scooter, didn't you, sweetheart? He's so clumsy." The boy didn't say anything. He kept eating. "What school does he go to?" He's between schools right now. We pulled him out for personal reasons. He's 13. He's a very mature 13. He's been homeschooled this year. I've been homeschooling him. You? Yes, Daddy. I let that sit. I had a lot of questions, but I was not going to ask them in front of the boy. So I said, "There's a guest room down the hall on the left. Tate, when you're done eating, you go take a shower in that bathroom and you go lay down and you rest. We'll talk about everything else later." He looked at me. He looked at his mother. He looked at me again. "Go on, son," I said. "Nobody's going to bother you." He took the rest of the sandwich and the milk and he went down the hall. And I waited until I heard the bedroom door close. And I waited a beat longer. And then I turned back to my son and his wife. And I said, "Now, tell me what you want." Camille had her speech ready. I will give her that. She'd been rehearsing it the whole drive from Reno. She started with how much they had missed me, and how the years had gone by so fast, and how Brennan had been wanting to reach out for so long, but he was just embarrassed about things that had been said, and how now that I was retired and alone in this big, beautiful house, we could all heal as a family, and how she just thought that maybe, for a little while, just until Brennan got back on his feet, we could all stay here together. 3 or 4 months. 6, at the outside. She and Brennan would take the master suite, since I probably didn't need all that space at my age. And Tate could have one of the smaller rooms. And they'd be so easy, Daddy. So easy, we'd hardly know they were there. I let her talk until she ran out of words. It took a while. When she was done, I said, "Brennan." He didn't look up. "Look at me, son." He looked up. 11 years ago, you sat in my kitchen and told me your wife was right, and that I was a controlling old bastard who would ruin your childhood, and that I would never see your son. Do you remember that, Dad? Do you remember that? Yes. 2 years after that, your mother got the diagnosis. I called you. You did not call back. I called you 11 times. Your mother wrote you a letter in her own hand. We never heard back. She died in March of 2022. She asked for you. You did not come. Do you remember that? He started to cry. Not a man's crying. A kid's crying. Wet and snuffling. "And now," I said, "your boy walks into my house with a bruise on his face and a hollow in his cheeks, and he tells me he hasn't eaten since yesterday. And you sit in my front room and ask me for the master bedroom." "Daddy, that's not fair," Camille said. "That's not what we—" "Camille, shut up." She shut up. I leaned back. I crossed my arms. And here's the part I want you to pay attention to. Because this is where I made the decision that drove everything that came after. I could have thrown them out right there. I could have stood up and walked to the door and held it open and told them to get back in their SUV and drive to whatever hole they crawled out of. I had every right. They knew it. They were braced for it. Camille's face was already starting to set itself into the mask of righteous indignation she was going to use on whatever poor sheriff she called next. But the boy was in my guest room. The boy had a bruise on his face. The boy hadn't eaten since yesterday, and I needed to know. I needed to know, in the worst way, what those two people had been doing to my grandson. So I said, "You can stay." Camille's face went from braced to triumphant so fast I almost laughed. "Not the master," I said. "Two guest rooms on the back hall. You stay out of my office. You stay out of the master. You stay out of the garage. And we are not going to call this anything other than what it is, Camille. This is not a healing visit. This is not a family reunion. You came here because you are broke and you need a place to land. Fine, I'll give you a place to land. Fine, I'll give you a place to land for 2 weeks. After that, we will have a conversation about what comes next." 2 weeks, she said. "Daddy, that's not enough time to 2 weeks. But we need 2 weeks, Camille. Or you can get back in the car right now." She swallowed it. I could see her swallow it. I could see her already calculating how she was going to turn 2 weeks into 2 months. That night, after they'd hauled their 7 suitcases into the back hall, and Camille had complained about the size of the guest closets, and Brennan had said 3 words total at dinner, I sat in my office with the door locked, and I made 2 phone calls. The first was to a woman named Delphine Crowder, who had been my lawyer for 31 years. Delphine is 72 years old, 4'11", and the meanest creature I have ever met outside of a bull pasture. I told her everything. The bruise. The hunger. The 11 years. The hunger. The 11 years. The 7 suitcases. The homeschooling. Delphine listened the way she always listens, without making a sound, and when I was done, she said, "Roy, before we do anything else, I want a private investigator on your son and his wife by morning. I want to know what they're running from. Nobody packs 7 suitcases and a cat for a healing visit." Agreed. And Roy, the boy, if what you suspect is true, we're going to need to move fast and we're going to need to move clean. Do not, Roy, listen to me. Do not, Roy, listen to me. Do not lose your temper at them. Do not threaten them. Do not let on that you suspect anything. You play the soft old man. You give them rope. We give them rope. Are you hearing me? I'm hearing you. You always were a poor liar, Roy. I'll learn. The second call was to a man named Curtis Yarrow, who used to do safety inspections for my company, and who now runs a discreet little firm out of San Antonio that finds things people would rather not have found. I told him I needed a workup on Brennan and Camille Whitaker, last known address in Reno, Nevada, and I needed it inside 72 hours, and I did not care what it cost. Curtis said, "Anything else, Roy?" I said, "Yes." The boy, 13 years old. Tate, I want to know about the boy. Understood. I hung up. I sat at my desk a long time. I thought about my Margaret and the way she would have cried if she'd seen that boy tonight. She had loved that baby. She had a whole drawer of presents for him she never got to send. They're still in the closet of the room he's sleeping in tonight. I haven't been able to throw them away. The next 4 days I played the soft old man. I played him so well I almost convinced myself. I let Camille take over the kitchen. I let her order groceries on my credit card, $300 of groceries on a Wednesday, $400 on a Friday. I let her hire a cleaning lady I did not ask for. I let her stand in my front room on the phone with her sister, who was apparently in San Diego, telling that sister that Daddy was really declining and that she was so worried about him being out here all alone, and wasn't it lucky they'd come when they did. I let her go through my mail one afternoon when she thought I was napping. I have cameras in every room of this house except the bathrooms and the bedrooms, which she did not know. And I watched her on my phone, sitting in my office chair, opening my bank statements. She had a notepad. She was writing things down. I let Brennan sit in front of my television for 9 hours a day. He barely spoke. He drank my bourbon. He gained another 2 pounds in 4 days. Once, on Thursday afternoon, I came in and sat in the chair next to him during a commercial, and I said, Son, what happened to you? He looked at me with eyes that were a lot older than 41. Dad, he said, I don't know. You used to be a good kid. I know. What does she have on you? He looked at the screen. He didn't answer. After a minute, he said, Dad, just let her run her play. Please, just let her run it. It'll be easier. Easier for who? He didn't answer. But what I really did those 4 days was watch my grandson. Tate did not eat with us the first night. Or the second. Camille said he was settling. On the third night, I went and knocked on his door, and I said, Son, come eat with your grandpa. Just you and me out on the back porch. Bring whatever you want from the kitchen. He came. He brought a peanut butter sandwich because I think he didn't know he was allowed to ask for anything else. We sat on the porch as the sun went down behind the live oaks and the cicadas started up, and I did not ask him a single question for the first 20 minutes. I just let him eat. Then I said, You like fishing? He shrugged. Ever been? No, sir. Your daddy used to fish. I taught him on the Guadalupe when he was about your age. You want to learn? He looked at me. He really looked at me. He had Margaret's eyes. He said, Mom doesn't like fishing. Mom isn't invited. The corner of his mouth moved. Not a smile. The ghost of one. I want to tell you what I learned about Tate over those 4 days, in pieces, sitting on that back porch with him in the evenings while his mother thought he was watching television in his room. I learned that he had not been to a real school in 2 years. Camille had pulled him out of 7th grade because she'd told the district she was going to homeschool him. She had not homeschooled him. He could read fine. Margaret would be glad, but he had not done a math problem in 18 months, and he could not, when I asked him, point to Texas on a map of the United States. I learned that the bruise was from his mother. She had backhanded him at a gas station in New Mexico because he asked if he could have a Coke. He told me this looking at the porch boards. I learned that they had been evicted from their apartment in Reno the week before. He'd watched the sheriff put their things on the sidewalk. I learned that his father had not had a steady job in 3 years. That what money came in came from his mother, who did something on the computer that Tate did not understand, but that involved her being very angry on the phone a lot of the time, and then moving every 6 or 7 months. I learned that the cat's name was Pickles. That Pickles was the only friend Tate had in the world, and that Camille had threatened twice in the last month to leave Pickles by the side of the road if Tate did not behave. On Friday morning, Curtis Yarrow's report came in on my private email. 21 pages. My daughter-in-law's real name was not Camille Whitaker. It was Camille Doreen Pritchard, and she had outstanding warrants in 2 states. In Nevada, she was wanted for grand theft from an elderly couple in Carson City she had been employed to care for as a part-time home health aide. She had cleaned out $46,000 from their accounts over 4 months before they noticed. In Oregon, she was wanted for a similar scheme from 2019. The Reno police had been to her apartment the day after the eviction. They had missed her by about 6 hours. Brennan was not currently wanted for anything, but he had 2 DUIs in the last 5 years and a suspended license in Nevada. He had been let go from the dealership in August not because of layoffs, as Camille had said, but because he had been caught taking down payments from customers and pocketing them. The dealership had not pressed charges because his manager was an old high school friend and had taken pity on him. And Tate, my Tate, Curtis had been thorough. Tate had been seen by a school nurse in March of 2024, 3 weeks before Camille pulled him out, with what the nurse had recorded in her notes as a contusion on the upper left arm in the shape of a hand, approximately adult-sized. The nurse had filed a report. A caseworker had been to the apartment once. Camille had told the caseworker that Tate was clumsy and that he wrestled with his cousins, which was a lie because he didn't have any cousins. The case had been closed for lack of follow-up because Camille moved them out of the district 2 weeks later. I sat in my office and I read that report twice. My hands were steady. My hands have always been steady. Then I called Delphine. I told her what was in the report. She was quiet for a long time, and then she said, Roy, I want you to listen to me very carefully. We are going to do this in one piece, and we are going to do it on Sunday, and it is going to be ugly. but it has to be clean. Tell me. You are going to invite people over on Sunday afternoon, not many. Your old friend Hollis from the shop. Curtis. Me. The sheriff. Specifically, you are going to call Sheriff Doreen Bullard, who I went to law school with, and you are going to ask her to come in plain clothes and to bring one deputy. We are going to lay everything out at the same table at the same time. Camille will not have a chance to bolt, because she will not see it coming until the sheriff identifies herself. And Tate is the priority. We are going to file for emergency temporary guardianship Monday morning. Doreen will have CPS standing by Sunday. You will have to make a sworn statement. I will be there to walk you through it. And Brennan. A long pause. Roy, your son is going to have to make a choice. He can stand with his wife and go down with her, or he can cooperate. I want you to know going in, that I think he is going to stand with her. I have seen this before. The weak ones stand with the strong ones. Be prepared. I was prepared. That Friday night, I sat on the back porch with Tate one more time. We watched the deer come out at dusk. He had named the biggest doe, Edith, after I asked him what he'd name her if he could name anything in the world. He told me he had always wanted to name something. His mother said pets were stupid except Pickles, and she'd named Pickles. I said, son, I need to tell you something, and I need you to listen, and I need you not to tell your mother. Can you do that? He nodded. On Sunday, some people are coming over here. They are friends of mine. And we are going to have a conversation with your mom and dad that is going to be hard. And after that conversation, things are going to change. I want you to know that no matter what happens on Sunday, you are not going to be hurt anymore. You are not going to go hungry anymore. And nobody is ever going to lay a hand on you again. Do you understand me? His chin started to wobble. He nodded. What I need you to do on Sunday is stay in your room with Pickles and don't come out, no matter what you hear, until I come and get you. Can you do that? Yes, sir? Good boy. He sat there a minute. Then he said, very small, Grandpa. Yes, son. Are they going to take me away from you? I want to tell you that I answered him calm. I want to tell you that. But what I did was, I had to look out at the live oaks for a minute and breathe before I could speak. And then I said, no, son, they are not going to take you away from me. Your grandpa has the best lawyer in Bexar County and a whole lot of money, and you are going to live with me. If you want to. I want to. Then that's what's going to happen. He scooted over and he put his head against my shoulder. He was 13 years old, and he weighed about 90 pounds. And he put his head against my shoulder, and I thought my chest was going to crack right in half. Sunday came. Camille was in a good mood Sunday morning. She had spent the previous evening on the phone with her sister, talking about how Daddy had agreed to extend their stay, which I had not, and how she was thinking she could get me to put the ranch in a family trust by Christmas. I watched the recording of that phone call twice. She used the words "the old fool" 4 times. I told her at breakfast that I'd invited a couple of old friends over for the afternoon to meet the family. She lit up. Oh, Daddy, of course, we'd love to, wouldn't we, Brennan? Brennan grunted. At 3 o'clock, my doorbell rang. I let Camille get it. She'd put on a dress. Hollis came in first. Hollis Mackey is 70 years old, 6'4". Looks like a retired bull rider because he is one, and is the man I trust most on this earth. He nodded to Camille and walked past her without a word. Curtis came in behind him. Delphine came in after Curtis in a navy pantsuit, carrying a leather portfolio. And behind Delphine came a tall, gray-haired woman in slacks and a button-up shirt, and a younger man with a buzz cut, both of them wearing a kind of polite blankness on their faces that took Camille about 4 seconds to clock. She froze in my front hall. Daddy, she said. Who is Camille? I said. "Brennan, I'd like you to sit down in the front room. We are going to have a conversation." She didn't sit down. She stood there in her dress with her hand on her purse, and she said, "Daddy, what is going on?" "Sit down, Camille." She sat down, Camille. She sat down. Slowly, Brennan was already sitting. He had not stood up when our guests came in. Delphine opened her portfolio. Curtis sat in the armchair by the fireplace. Sheriff Doreen Bullard, that was the tall, gray-haired woman, leaned against the doorframe. The deputy stood by the front door. Hollis took the chair next to mine, and he crossed his arms, and he did not take his eyes off Camille for the next 40 minutes. I let Delphine start. She introduced herself as my attorney. She introduced herself as my attorney. She introduced Curtis as a licensed private investigator. She introduced the sheriff. The deputy. She watched Camille's face the whole time. So did I. Camille's face went through 5 different expressions in 15 seconds and settled on the one she'd been wearing when she walked in my door on Tuesday. Bright, performative concern. "Oh my goodness," Camille said. "Daddy, what is this? Is something wrong? Is this about the will? Because I want you to know." "Camille," Delphine said, "you are going to want to listen and not talk. We are going to lay out a series of facts for you. When we are done, you are going to be offered a choice. Do you understand?" "Yes, but..." "Yes or no, Camille?" "Yes." Delphine went through the report. She did not rush. She did it the way she has done depositions for 40 years, calm and methodical, like she was reading the temperature off a thermometer. The warrants, the grand theft, the elderly couple in Carson City, the eviction, the fraud at the dealership in Reno, the school nurse report from March 2024, the bruise on a 13-year-old boy in the shape of an adult hand. Camille's face stopped performing somewhere around minute 4. By minute 8, she had gone the color of skim milk. By minute 12, she was looking for the door. The deputy was standing in front of the door. When Delphine finished, she closed her portfolio, and she looked at Brennan, and she said, "Brennan, your father has asked me to give you a choice. We have the documentation to file kidnapping and child endangerment charges against both of you. The Nevada warrants alone will put your wife in custody this afternoon. You have 2 options." She held up a finger. "Option 1, you sign, today, a voluntary surrender of guardianship of your son to your father. You agree, in writing, to leave the state of Texas within 72 hours and to have no contact with your son or your father until and unless your son, as a legal adult, chooses to initiate it. You do not get charged here today. Whatever Nevada does to you for the dealership matter is between you and Nevada. But you walk out of this house, Brennan." She held up a second finger. "Option 2, you stand with your wife, in which case Sheriff Bullard takes both of you into custody this afternoon. Your son enters emergency CS care tonight, and you find out from inside a county jail whether your father has the patience to fight your wife's extradition while also fighting you for custody." "He does." Brennan looked at his wife. "I want you to understand something. I had told myself, the way Delphine had told me to, that he was going to stand with her. I had told myself that on Friday night, and again on Saturday morning, looking in the mirror while I shaved. I told myself my son was already gone, and that nothing I did on Sunday was going to bring him back. But sitting there on Sunday afternoon, watching him look at her, I still hoped. God help me. I am 67 years old, and I still hoped he would do the right thing." Camille said, "Brennan, don't you dare." And Brennan, my son, looked at her, and looked at the deputy by the door. And he looked at me, and he said, "Where do I sign?" Camille screamed at him. I will not put what she said in the comments of this video. But she screamed at him for about 12 seconds before Sheriff Bullard walked over and said, very quietly, "Ma'am, stand up, please. Hands behind your back." It took her a second to understand what was happening. When she did, she lunged for her purse, and the deputy was there before she could touch it, and they took her out of my front room in handcuffs while she screamed about her rights and about how she was going to sue me for every dime I had. The deputy had heard all of that before. He nodded politely. He put her in the back of an unmarked car in my driveway. Brennan signed the papers. He signed them at my dining room table with Delphine standing over him and Curtis as a witness. His hand was shaking. When he was done, he put the pen down and he put his head in his hands and he cried for real this time. And he said, "Dad, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry," over and over. I let him cry. I did not put my hand on his shoulder. I did not tell him it was all right. Because it was not all right. Because it was not all right. When he was done crying, I said, "Son, you have 72 hours. There's a duffel bag in the garage with $3,000 cash in it and the keys to your mother's old Toyota, which I kept. You can take it. You can have until Wednesday morning to be out of Texas. After that, if you come back on this property without my written permission, I will have you arrested for trespass. Do you understand?" "Yes, sir. You are going to get sober. You are going to get a job. You are going to get a job. You are going to do the work, Brennan. And maybe in 5 years or in 10, you are going to be a man your son can stand to be in a room with. That is on you. I cannot do it for you. Your mother and I tried for 41 years and we could not do it for you. The rest is on you. Yes, sir. Get up. Get your things. Get out of my house." He went. He left most of his stuff. He took a backpack and the keys and the duffel, and he walked out the front door. And I watched from the porch as he got in that old Toyota and drove down my driveway and out onto the county road. And I have not seen him since. That was 2 years and 1 month ago. He calls once a month on the first Sunday. He's been sober for 19 months. He's not asked me for money. I do not know if that is going to last. I hope it does. Camille was extradited to Nevada 3 weeks later. She got 6 years for the Carson City matter, and she has 2 more pending in Oregon. She has tried to write to Tate twice. The letters come to my house. I have a stack of them in the drawer with the From the Family card. Tate does not know they exist. He will when he's older, if he wants to know, after they took her out, after Brennan drove off, after Delphine and Curtis and Hollis and the sheriff and the deputy were gone. I walked down the back hall and I knocked on the guest room door. "It's Grandpa," I said. "You can come out." He opened the door. He had pickles in his arms. He looked at my face and he said, "Are they gone?" "They're gone. Both of them. Both of them. Both of them." He started to cry. Quiet. The way he did everything. I sat down on the floor of the hallway, right there in front of the door, an old man with bad knees, and I held my arms open. And that boy came down onto the floor with me and put his face against my shirt and cried like he had not been allowed to cry in his entire life. The cat sat on the rug beside us and watched. He is 15 now. He has been in school, a real school, for 2 years. He plays JV baseball. He is failing French and getting an A in geometry. He has a friend named Connor who comes over on Fridays to play video games and eat my food. He has gained 24 pounds and grown almost 6 inches, and he eats 3 full meals a day, and the bruise on his cheek is so far gone, I sometimes forget which side it was on. He calls me Pops. He started calling me that a year ago. I did not ask him to. He asks about his mother sometimes. He asks about his father more. I tell him the truth. The parts of it he is ready for, and I do not lie about the parts he is not ready for. Yet. I tell him his daddy is sober and is working at a tire shop in Tulsa, which is the truth. I tell him his mother is in a place where she cannot hurt him, which is also the truth. I tell him I love him every day, sometimes more than once, because Margaret used to tell Brendan that every day, and I do not know if it would have made a difference, but I am not willing to find out twice in one lifetime. Last week, he asked me if he could put up a basketball hoop in the driveway. I told him sure. We drove into town, and we bought one, and we put it up on Saturday morning. The 2 of us, with a post hole digger and a bag of Quickrete. And he was bossy about it, the way 13-year-old grandsons are bossy, and we argued about the height and he won. And when we were done, he stood at the free throw line, he taped on the concrete, and he made 9 in a row, and then he turned around and grinned at me. Margaret's grin. Exact. I'm going to tell you what I have learned, and then I'm going to let you go. Blood doesn't make a family. It really doesn't. I know it sounds like a thing people say on greeting cards, but I am telling you it is the truth, and I had to lose my wife and my only son, and almost lose my grandson before I knew it in my bones. Family is the people who show up. Family is the people who would walk through fire for you and not ask why. My friend Hollis is more my family than my son ever was. Delphine Crowder, who I pay by the hour, has done more for me in one Sunday afternoon than my own boy did in 11 years. And that boy down the hall, who I did not know until he was 13, and who came to me hungry and bruised and afraid of his own shadow. That boy is my son now. Not my grandson. My son. The one I get to do right by. The one I get to do right by. The one I get to be there for. I've $22 million, and I will spend every last cent of it on him, if that is what it takes to make sure he never goes hungry again, and never gets backhanded at a gas station again, and never has to wonder again whether somebody in this world will stand up for him. If you have been underestimated by your own blood, if you have been written off by the people who are supposed to love you, I want you to know that the door is not closed. You are not done. You can still build something. You can still be somebody's family. Sometimes the family you needed has been standing there the whole time, waiting for you to look up. Hit that like button if you made it this far. Subscribe if you want more stories like this one. And tell me in the comments, was I too soft on my son? Should I have let him sit in a cell with his wife? Or did he get exactly what he deserved? Which was a chance he did not earn and may not even take. I'll read every comment. I always do. Take care of your real family. The one that shows up. I have thought about that Sunday afternoon a lot in the 2 years since. I've thought about why it happened the way it did, and whether it could have happened any other way. And what I would tell a younger man if I had the chance to sit him down at my kitchen table and pour him a cup of coffee and warn him. What I would tell him is this: every choice you make plants something. You may not see it grow for 10 years or 20 or 40, but it grows. Brennan did not wake up one morning at 41 years old and decide to be a coward. He practiced cowardice in small ways for 30 years. And Margaret and I let him, because we loved him and we were tired and we told ourselves he would grow out of it. He did not grow out of it. He grew into it. The boy who would not stand up to a girl in 7th grade became the man who would not stand up for his own son in a gas station parking lot. That is cause and effect. That is the harvest from the seed. And Camille practiced taking in small ways until taking was the only thing she knew how to do. She took from old people in Carson City. She took from a dealership in Reno. She took from her own 13-year-old boy the food off his plate and the dignity out of his eyes. And when she walked up onto my porch in October, she took because she did not know any other way to walk up onto a porch. The handcuffs the sheriff put on her in my front room were not a punishment somebody handed down from the sky. They were the natural shape of a life she had been building, brick by brick, for 20 years. She built that cage herself. Here is what I want you to take from this. A person becomes what they practice. If you practice running, you will run. If you practice lying, you will run. If you practice lying, you will lie when it matters most. But the same law works the other way. If you practice telling the truth when it costs you something, you will be able to tell the truth when the price is high. If you practice keeping your word will mean something. If you practice standing up when your knees are shaking, one day you will stand up and your knees will not shake at all. I am 67 years old. I am not a wise man. I am a welder who got lucky, and a father who failed once already, But I have a 15-year-old boy sleeping down the hall tonight, and I get a second chance with him, and I am going to use that chance to teach him 3 things. To be honest, even when honesty costs him. To use his head before he uses his mouth, and to keep going when the easy thing is to lie down. That is all I have. That is all I can give him. And I hope, it will be enough.